Hi, very good morning, good afternoon. My name is Geoff Hucker. I am the CEO of Work for Impact, and with me today is the CEO of Plastic Oceans Canada, Mr. Adrian Midwood. Adrian,
Thanks
how
for
are
having
you?
me, Jeff. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, really well, thank you. It's great to see you today. Thank you so much for your time. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the great work that you do?
So the executive director of Plastic Oceans Canada, took that over, I guess, in February 2019. So for those watching, Jeff and I met each other in Fiji when I had a small organization working on developing island environmental impact or environmental development, basically trying to value waste plastics. So when I moved home to Canada, Plastic Ocean's office here had got to charity status, but there was nobody really managing it. So we decided to just sort of team up. And yeah, it's been going extremely well. We had a really busy year last year, but I still had jobs over in Tonga and Fiji, so we kind of split back and forth. And then this year, we had planned to do a very Canadian centered program where we were crossing from east to west, following a guy that runs across Canada picking up litter every year. And but yeah, and with COVID, 72 events were canceled.
And how, on that, with COVID, the whole world's changed. In Hong Kong, we're coming to the new normal, whatever that will be. And for Plastic Oceans Canada, how has it actually, apart from cancelling the events, how's it changed the way that you operate? How's it changed the way you fundraise? How's it changed the way that you communicate with your constituents?
Well, communication is, we luckily we have lots of great social channels. Lots of it's pretty easy to do online presentations. A lot of people can patch in. Like for example, we've got somebody who was with us more permanently before COVID is actually presenting to something like 100 Girl Guides, I think tomorrow, for like an online presentation where they can just watch one of our films, which we have a whole catalog of, whether that starts with A Plastic Ocean, the original, going through all these other little shorts, and then they can get online and do a Q&A. As far as operating, I mean, yeah, it's difficult because our direct action this year was to cross the whole country, and our goal there was to meet all the organizations that work locally. We've got the largest coastline in the world. We've got 20% of the world's fresh.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Well, we
Wow.
have three coastlines, right? We have the east, the north, and the west,
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
and
Cool.
20% of the world's fresh water.
Really?
So, with Canada being a lot of landlocked, people oftentimes come up when you have oceans in your name. They're like, oh, well, it doesn't affect us. And it's like, well, the ocean's downhill from everywhere, and there's lots of rivers and lakes in these places. So we're really attempting to kind of bring everyone together, understand who works locally every single day, because that's the thing, is there are a lot of great local organizations, and plastics is, now that it's become one of the high topics, everyone does have some sort of initiative in it.
Yeah.
So that's changed quite a bit. And then today, actually, we've just announced our longer term goal, which was really combining my past to this office. And that's all remote and uninhabited shoreline cleanups, and then engaging circular economy with everything that we pick up. So a lot of marine litter, sadly, is at end of life. It's been too contaminated, photo degraded, broken up in the ocean or in the lakes and the rivers. So what we can do is gasify that to alternative fuels. I'm not sure if you ever saw my machine in Fiji where we could
Yeah, it's really
make
cool.
oil. So we can do that, and that can actually become the fuel that powers these expeditions. So we can reduce the carbon footprint. We eliminate it from the environment because it can't be recycled in any way, and otherwise it would go to landfill, which would end up in our oceans. So COVID changed a lot of things as far as operations, but if anything, we were able to, instead of going across Canada, meeting everyone and announcing this goal as a next term, we'll see how the fundraising goes through this month, because fundraising just stopped 100%. We haven't seen anything, and everything that was available got pulled back because foundations and government funding were reserving for frontline workers. So we've had a 3-month just stop,
Wow.
which is pretty
God.
difficult. But
Yeah.
luckily, we live in a great country where we have social security. People were taken care of. Everyone's rent was paid, or at least helped out, and it wasn't as hard as other countries. But we're really ready to get back up to it, and announcing that today.
Great. Well, good luck With all the challenges that we've all faced through the COVID-19, do you see any positives for the environment? You know, as you know, I live here in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
and for the past few months, the sky's just been so blue, and I swim in the ocean every day, which is not too far from us. And historically, it's just been full of plastic and litter and rubbish. But gradually, I've been seeing less and less.
Oh,
Um,
okay. That's interesting that you've been seeing less rubbish.
yeah, it's I don't really. Is it people not being out? They're not going to the beaches. They're not polluting.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
how
a
about
lot of that would be the personal impact. So it's interesting because we have seen a huge promise or forward momentum now that our personal impact has been reduced, right? So we've started seeing like the top of the Himalayas, like you could see Mount Everest. You know, canals in Venice were clearing up and dolphins were returning back in. However, we had seen a rise in litter. So it's interesting that you saw a reduction there in Hong Kong, but in Canada, I mean, we were leading the way with federal bans on single-use plastics. You know, as far as bags at checkout, cutlery, single-use cups, and we were going to have national bans in place by the end of this year. But all of a sudden, that got completely turned around, and then we were also seeing a massive rise in like face masks and gloves and everything just littered on the streets. So it was like the whole uh, consciousness of what this does to the environment was just gone overnight.
right? So through the personal protective equipment, the gloves, the masks, and so on, do you see that as a new challenge coming for your work?
I mean, I really think it just falls in the line of single-use plastics, right? So I mean, really, it's such a huge fight, but it's actually not the large weight volume of litter. But the thing is, it has a massive effect. I mean, it's pretty common knowledge nowadays that a single-use bag is looks like a jellyfish to a turtle, and then they ingest it, and we're losing a lot of turtles because of that. So with PPE, you know, like a face mask or a glove, it's just a single-use item, and I think that's where that throwaway culture comes in. And
Yep.
we were having such good success and momentum with changing like the shift in mentality over these items, and people were going in the right direction. I mean, we saw that in Fiji when we both lived there, when that plastic bag levy came in. You
Yep.
know, even though none of the money actually went into environment work that they raised through the levy, we just, because it was an actual like dollar footprint and it would cost people money, they started valuing those items. So instead of it being a throwaway thing where they took it out, they were done with it, it went on the side of the road, that 10 cents changed the whole mentality and we saw a reduction in litter. So yeah, it's just really changing that focus over being a throwaway culture.
And is that your sort of advice to us all? Is just to really no single-use plastic, look for alternatives?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a huge rise in alternatives coming in. We found out the problems with plastic, right? It's a very useful item. A lot of people forget how much we do use it and how useful it is in certain areas, like especially with the medical field. But yeah, look for alternatives. I mean, reusables on the single-use side, when you're not talking about personal protection equipment where it needs to be disposable but then disposed of properly, you know, on the other single-use items like cutlery and bags and containers, you know, all those styrofoam takeaway things, there's no need for it because you can use reusables or something more durable. Even if it is something that will get thrown out after 4 or 5 uses, at least it's not single use, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where the resource exploitation comes in. Where, I mean, it's a false economy to think that they're just cheap throwaway items when you look at how many resources go into like extracting it, manufacturing it, and shipping it, and then being used for 10 seconds.
Mm. Well, we're trying to do our bit, absolutely. And you definitely led me on that path, and I'm thankful for that. Please ask Adrian any questions. It's a unique opportunity, so questions coming through. For us being a freelance platform, we want to help freelancers connect with for-purpose organisations. Do you have any advice for freelancers and how they can find the right organisations, or indeed how you find the right talent and how you find motivated people that really believe in your cause? And
Well, I think on the later end of that question, I mean, people, when you have, luckily, and one of the reasons I teamed up with Plastic Oceans is we've got a strong name. So people come to us, and then it's just a vetting process of whether or not they have a history of finishing the job. So, you know, for us, if somebody comes at us and they're like, hey, I'd really like to help out here, and then it's normally a, hey, what can you do? And then we figure out if there's some way that we could contract them for that service, or if there's just sort of a small one-off design job, like if you could really help us out with this PDF or this infographic. Because we're very small. I mean, the organization, even globally, is only about 3-4 years old max.
Yep.
And the Canadian office was dormant until we teamed up. Really, they'd got the charity status, but there was no money in the bank and nobody was running it. So, you know, we're really just building now our assets. So for us, we really need people that can help out or offer services in kind. And then on the, you know, if we have a larger job, then we can actually hire somebody. But I would say if as a freelancer, just pick the cause that you're into, that you're passionate about, and maybe shop around a bit, talk to a few of the organizations, see, you know, everyone's got their different focus. Sometimes it's a community action group that's been around for 20-25 years, so they've actually got a good fund up and they've got good stakeholders. And then they get to be involved locally. Sometimes people are really more interested in legislation, you know, so that's a different type of organization. Usually they're the
organization, your expertise to help them push them forward.
Exactly.
We've got a question here from Joe.
Yep.
Where is Adrian? It looks beautiful.
I'm in a town called Tofino. It's on the west coast of Vancouver Island. So it's kilometer 1 of the Trans-Canada Highway.
Kilometer 1, wow. We have a question here from Matush. So how could someone connect with you, with your organization? What's the best way?
Easiest is just plasticoceans.ca, and then there's a contact us form. So we really, and even when anyone contacts over our social channels, like Facebook and Instagram, we usually just say, send us a contact us form. And then that comes through and we can answer back with the best way to get involved.
Great. Okay. And then in a year, 2 years, what will you see fundraising looking like for charities like Investigation?
I mean, for us, we had just started tapping into the foundation market. So in Canada, there's, I think the number's around 15,000 family foundations where, you know, this is old money that's parked in a fund, and then normally it creates a lot of interest, and then the Canadian government has a mandate where they have to actually give a certain percentage of those assets.
Right.
So it's a really good system, actually. So that money's parked there, it earns interest, and then they pretty much give away the interest, right, annually. So we were just starting to build that network with that Run Against Plastic tour, and then that all got stopped. So we at least have a list of people that would potentially be interested in our topic. But otherwise, another side with the Run Against Plastic and the 72 public events was to really just build up our sort of $5 a month donation network. You know, because we're so young, we don't have like a list of 10,000 people that automatically give $5 a month. You know, where you see someone like Greenpeace or Sea Shepherd that's been around for a lot longer. They've really got those systems in place, so they're able to forecast. You know, they're able to know that they have this many people, and then they can direct this amount of money into a certain direction. So I guess it's just going to be time's going to tell with our office, and I feel that the public consciousness on the topic of waste plastics in our waterways was so high right before COVID that we'll bounce back.
Yeah.
But our direct focus will be, you know, we're aiming towards really doing a proof of concept this year on the remote shoreline extraction to circular economy. We'll write a whole report on, you know, what it would take to do all of Canada's coastline, the largest in the world. And we want to do that with mobilizing a commercial ship. You know, much like Sea Shepherd or Greenpeace has their ships for their own initiatives, we would like to have a commercial ship of scale that has these processing utilities on board. So once we do all of Canada's coastline, we can take that out to developing countries where they're uninhabited islands and all of the world's garbage is washing up on shore. And it's never going to be economical to go cost neutral. It's always going to rely on donor dollars, but at least we can go there and just get it off these shorelines so it doesn't sweep back in the ocean on the next high tide or the next big storm. Get it on board and then locally actually process it right there. And if all we're doing is really subsidizing the fuel impact of that expedition, we're at least getting rid of those plastics, making sure they're never in our environment again, and you know, minimizing our footprint on even making that happen. So we'll see how far we can go with that. But this winter, I'm looking at getting back to my sailboat, Moana, and doing a test concept in the developing islands. So I'll probably sail maybe semi in your direction, but I'll go north up to the Marshall Islands and then might turn your way, because there is a plant in Palau. So we could go and extract a lot of remote islands and then go to Palau and test the fuel that comes out of that. But we can do that at a very low cost with my floating treehouse that you know.
Maybe a few surfs along the way as well.
Everyone's got to stay sane.
And you've travelled the world's oceans, and we've all read about the plastic islands in the middle of the Pacific and the oceans. Have you ever witnessed it firsthand?
Yeah, absolutely. I did a campaign in the Atlantic Ocean through that gyre, maybe 5 years ago now, 4 years ago. That was actually with a bunch of professional windsurfers. They were doing a trip on learning how to care for their playground. And it's interesting because, and I even answered a thing on social media the other day, which normally I don't engage with. We've got our communications people for that, but a lot of people see it as a physical island, and really these garbage patches. And I have been up through the one in the North Pacific as well, which is the largest in the world. It's like twice the size of Texas, but it's a soup, Yeah, like so they're called gyres, and they happen from ocean currents and predominant wind patterns and the water moving around, and then it basically just consolidates all the waste and the debris into one general area. But being that it's water and it's not a physical mass, it does spit out, right? And that's why you see certain shorelines in Hawaii so affected, a lot of our west coast, so when you have big events like Fukushima and everything washing into the ocean, shortly thereafter, because of these currents, it would hit the gyre. A lot of it would stay in that gyre, but then a lot kind of exited that water system and ended up on our shorelines and down through Washington State and Oregon. So it's not actually a physical island. It really is just a soup of all this mess just kind of circling around until it eventually leaves.
Terrible. So we're thankful for the work that you're doing. We're thankful for the work that Plastic Oceans Canada is doing, indeed.
Thank
Plastic
you.
Oceans throughout the world. Thank you for your time. It's been great to see you and see you looking well.
Thanks.
There's no other questions, then we'll call it a day. So,
all right. Well, thanks for having me this morning, World Oceans Day, and look forward to seeing your website take off.
All right. Thank you so much. See you, Adrian. Bye.